Parshas Terumah, Tov Pei Daled. We're back here to say our Nesivos Shalom Shir, back in the United States, back in Golus. Unfortunately, we had to come back, but once we're here, this is a great place to be. Bika Cholim headquarters, world headquarters in Lakewood, New Jersey. And this week we move on to a new subject in the Torah. We begin to discuss the home, the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to call home here on this earth. And the next couple of weeks, actually 5 weeks, Terumah, Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakel, Pekudei, 5 weeks. We separate the Parshias this year too, since we're in a leap year. So we have 5 solid weeks of talking about the building of the Mishkan, when they built the Mishkan, the dimensions, all the different things that went into the Mishkan, the Kalim, and obviously the fact that it spans 5 Parshias tells us just how important a subject it is in the Torah. And Nesivos Shalom brings a sefer, told us Yaakov Yosef, and we did a little research tonight. The told us Yaakov Yosef is a Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. Thank you to Ramaya Brul, who gives us all of our Hasidic heritage and history and dating and everything. So we established that the told us Yaakov Yosef is one of the founders, one of the fathers of the Hasidic movement, who lived until almost the year 1800. He lived until the year, I believe it was 1781. So just a couple of years after the United States became the United States, right? But the Tolos Yaakov Yosef brings a fascinating statement from the Alshich HaKadosh. And he says like this: we need to know that all of the Taryag mitzvahs, every one of the Taryag mitzvahs emanates from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the mitzvah. And just as, Zok the Alshich, just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nitzchi, forever, eternal, so too every mitzvah of the Taryag mitzvahs has eternal implications for every single person and every one of us. Every mitzvah has a nitzchias. Every mitzvah is eternal. Which of course, when we say that from the Alshich, it leads us to a question from our Parsha. And what does the pasuk tell us in our parsha? The Torah says, "V'asuli mikdash v'shochanti b'soicham." A tzivui from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make for me, Hashem says, a mikdash v'shochanti b'soicham, and I will dwell in that mikdash. Frek the Nesivos Shalom, what kind of nitzchias is there in a mitzvah of building a mishkan or a Beis HaMikdash? We know that as much as we want to say that the mitzvah is eternal, the mitzvah of building a Mishkan and a Beis HaMikdash is not noyeg in every door. We don't have a mitzvah today, right? Every door doesn't have a mitzvah to actually build the Mishkan or to build the Beis HaMikdash. And not only is it a question today, of course we don't have a mitzvah, because unfortunately we had a Chorban Abayis. There's no Beis HaMikdash today. Even before the Chorban, once they built the Mishkan, it was built. Once they built the Beis HaMikdash, it was there, it was built. So what kind of nitzchias? What is it talking to every generation? The Asuli Mikdash, make for me a Mikdash. It's already made. It was already built. What are we referring to when we say that every mitzvah, including this mitzvah of Yasuli Mikdash, has implications, nitzchias, for every person in every dar? And once we know that it was built already, it would seem, at face value, it would seem that we can't be Mekayim, the mitzvah of Yasuli Mikdash anymore. It's already standing. So that's a question the Nesivos Shalom asks. It would seem, right, that only for that door, the door that's building the Mishkan or building the Beis HaMikdash, they are able to be Mekayim, that mitzvah, just one door. The Gemara tells us Masechta Sanhedrin, Daf Tezayin Amud Beis, on the words of V'chein Ta'asu. The pasuk says V'chein Ta'asu after the commandment to build. The pasuk in our parsha says V'chein Ta'asu. Zok the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin. What does it mean V'chein Ta'asu? Why are you repeating that? Why are we mentioning that? It means l'doros, that it should be for all generations, for always. So Rashi actually says over there, what does it mean l'doros? So Rashi tells us that it's really coming to teach us that if one of the kelim of the Mishkan or the Beis HaMikdash, if one of the kelim of the Mishkan get lost, let's say, while they were traveling for some reason, fell off the wagon, it got lost, right? So it needs to be replaced with one that is identical to that keli. L'doros, that the same rule of how we build things and what they should be applies always. And really, actually, if you want to know, there's a question even on that too, says in Nesivos Shalom, because we know that the Mizbeach, when Shlomo HaMelech built the Mizbeach, Shlomo HaMelech built the Mizbeach with different dimensions, so it wasn't exactly the same. So even when we want to explain, there's an exception to that rule also. So really, we need to think about, we need to understand what the Torah means and what the Torah is teaching us for today, when we're instructed to actually build the Mishkan. What are the eternal lessons for us? If it's Nitzchi, something needs to be talking to us. If we're not building anything right now, we need to know exactly how it's talking to us and how it applies to us. Especially, like we mentioned at the beginning of the Shir, when we see, obviously this is a phenomenally important subject, going through 5 parshiyos, every word, there are entire drushas and gemaras and everything on an extra hey, an extra letter, and the Torah extra this. We dash this, and here it would seem that the Torah is just parshiyos and parshiyos, seemingly repeating the commandment to do it, when they did it, how they did it. 5 parshiyos means it's telling us something that actually, not only is it a lesson for us, but it must be a very, very important lesson. So Nesivos Shalom explains all of this with a beautiful Yesod from the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, who we mentioned at the beginning of the Shir. And he says like this, that the mitzvah of the Asuli Mikdash is actually an instruction, not just to the people who lived in that generation to build a Mishkan. It's an instruction to every single individual and every single one of us. And it's letting us know that every one of us and every person sitting here and every Jew anywhere in the world is a small world of their own. Every person is a world. Every person has so much to offer and so much to build around. And in our small world, we, as people, we are instructed to build a Mikdash Lashem. It's not just a tzivoy to tell those people who live in the generation of the Mishkan that you have a mitzvah to build a Mishkan and nobody else does, it would seem. No, every one of us is an entire world. Each one of us is a small world, and we have a commandment to build a Mikdash Lashem. What does that mean? It means that every one of us, every person, needs to be and should be an abode for the Shekhinah. A place where the Shekhinah wants to be. A place where the Shekhinah feels proud to be. We need to create a surrounding in our lives. There needs to be a Mishkan where? There needs to be a Mishkan in your brain. There needs to be a Mishkan in your heart. The job of each person is to create a Mishkan, says in the Nesivos Shalom, out of those 2 parts of yourself. As the Beis Yosef tells us, the Beis Yosef says in the name of Rabbeinu Yoina about tefillin. You know when you say, before you put on tefillin, and we know that tefillin, that shel roish, when you put on a shel roish and you have the mitzvah of tefillin shel roish, it's keneged, we say, your moyach. Keneged your mind, keneged your brain, and despite what people think, where your neshama resides, but that's where your neshama resides. Your neshama resides in your brain, and the Shel Rosh is connected that. And the Shel Yan, as we know, is to channel all of your machshavos of your heart to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that, therein lies what we see from the mitzvah of tefillin, and even people who are not yet putting on tefillin. And even, it speaks to men, it speaks to women, and not just people who are actually wearing the tefillin, but this idea that we see from the mitzvah of tefillin, that a person has to create a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a place for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in your heart and in your mind. That is our eternal mitzvah of B'yasu Li Mikdash. That every single one of us should turn ourselves into a Mishkan. Every one of us should turn ourselves into a Beis HaMikdash. And that is V'chein Ta'asu. When the Pasuk says V'chein Ta'asu, that's what we mean, L'doiros. That this mitzvah of B'yasu Li Mikdash is talking to every person here. It's talking to every person in every generation, and not just to the people of the Dor HaMidbar, not just to those people who lived in Yerushalayim when they were building the Beis HaMikdash. And that is a mitzvah for always, to build our lives in that way. And that's really the lesson that every one of us can take out of these parshiyos. We begin this week, when you do construction. So the first thing you have to worry about is the foundation, right? You could build a gorgeous house. You could build a beautiful house. I don't know, you drive around town today, you could see gorgeous edifices. You could see tremendous, beautiful mansions and houses. However, if the foundation of the home, if the foundation of the building is not good, then everything above it is a waste of time. So this week, when we start reading Parshas Terumah, we start reading about the Mishkan, the first thing every one of us has to think about is our foundation. Is our foundation a place that the Shekhinah wants to be? Are we building a foundation? Are our most basic wants and needs, those of Ruchnius, those that are speaking about, those that speak of, that are for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do we even know, do we concentrate on that, on those building blocks? And that's the mitzvah that every single one of us has. Every one of us has that mitzvah of B'yasu Li Mikdash. And we have now a few weeks in a row, we're now in Chodesh Ad already. You could build your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy, with simcha. Doesn't have to be depressing, doesn't have to be down. You could build it with happiness. You could build your Mishkan. Happy to know that we have the opportunity to be close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the opportunity to use those building blocks, build our own Mishkan. And in Emirtz Hashem, every single person here, you come out 5 weeks from now, when we finish talking about the Mishkan and we start heading toward Pesach, and we talk about the Karbonos in the Parsha, every one of us will have a beautiful, strong building, our own Mikdash, something that we can be proud of. Our minds will show it, our hearts will show it, and we'll be Mekayim in our day, the mitzvah of building a Mishkan.